years ago, we were very clear about the fact that we'd establish a dedicated gang task force, and that would have a national capability.
Strike Force Raptor.
The Australian version was Strike Force Raptor, and we were going to call ours Task Force Resolute, which I think sends a very clear message that it would be a resolute task force that's actually out there targeting and harassing gangs and making sure that they aren't out on the streets, that they aren't carrying firearms, and they don't feel like they've got the licence to be able to drive past people's homes and shoot at them. Bearing in mind, they're using high-powered military-style rifles. Those rounds can pass through 3 or 4 houses, and it's just been pure luck that we haven't had someone seriously injured or killed with one of these drive-by shootings. And by the way, that luck is going to run out eventually.
The public roundly rejected a trial of armed response teams.
I don't think the public rejected that at all in terms of the police having an armed response capability. I think that was a soft-on-crime government that didn't have the intestinal fortitude to actually stick with it, and they should have. And when you look at what's happening now, and you know, we've had police officers shot and killed during in broad daylight on the streets of West Auckland, and actually the police needed to have a strong response.
So more cops should be routinely armed in New Zealand.
Frontline police officers need to have readily available that tactical option for them.
On the person, not just in the car?
That's for the police to decide. That's an operational decision, but they have to have.
But if you're going to be police minister, this will be up to you as well.
If I'm police minister, I'll be making sure that we're not put in a situation where, with Constable Matthew Hunt and Constable David Goldfinch, that faced a gang member armed with 2 high-powered rifles, and they didn't have the ability to actually protect themselves or members of the public. That will not happen again. National
will not support a firearms registry, would scrap the $200 million the government has dedicated towards that. Why don't we need a firearm registry?
No, we wouldn't scrap it. What we've said is that they've spent $300 million on gun reform, and we had 9 drive-by shootings in the last 48 hours. It is fundamentally, it hasn't worked, it has failed, and we said that it needs to target the people that have got these illegal firearms, and that's organised crime members and gang members, and that's where we would focus the funding.
How many guns do we have in New Zealand?
Well, no one can tell us.
Isn't that a problem?
It's a massive problem.
Wouldn't a registry help with this?
The government's been very clear. Look, a registry may help. If a registry will help stop the straw man sales of firearms to gang members, then we would completely, totally support that. But we want to be absolutely sure that we're targeting the right part of society, and that's the part of society that doesn't want to follow the rules, that ignores the laws and continues to have carry and use illegal firearms.
You've called on the government to review their pursuit policy. Do you believe that's what's driving the spike in ram raids?
If you talk to the frontline police officers, this is one of their greatest frustrations, is that under the current pursuit policy, juvenile and youth offenders know that they can steal a car, they know that they can commit crime, and they know that they can drive past a police officer flicking the bird at them. And there's no consequences, and it goes a long way towards the proliferation and the growth that we've seen in this juvenile and youth offending, especially around the ram raids.
But the reason we changed that pursuit policy was that we lost 79 lives as a direct result of police pursuits, many of them children, a lot of them innocent bystanders. 79 lives from 2008 in a decade.
So that's why we've said that there needs to be an intelligent review of the policy to find out what can be done. Is there a halfway? Are there some additional powers or resources or tactical options that can be given to the police? We know that the Eagle can be very effective, but the only city in Auckland, the only city in New Zealand that actually has an Eagle capability is Auckland. They ran a trial in Christchurch, it was very successful, but the trial has gone away.
Is overall youth crime on the rise in New Zealand?
If you look at the government stats, they're saying it's reducing overall. I don't have a high level of confidence in the data that we're currently being given, because if you just apply a pragmatic common sense view to it, I think most Kiwis would say that they've seen a rise in youth offending.
That's anecdotal though. If we look at the justice figures over the last decade, it does seem in the big picture it's down by 65%. Those are hard numbers.
Well, I hope that trend is actually accurate.
You're contesting their figures, you're saying those figures are wrong.
I'm saying I don't have a high level of confidence in the data that we've been given at the moment.
So yes, you're saying they're wrong.
And the reason for that is because most Kiwis, if they applied the common sense rule, would say that it doesn't feel like youth offending is reducing, it feels like it's increasing.
Finally, at next election, with recent polling, there's a bit of wind in national sails. Do you want to be police minister?
It's the portfolio that I asked our leader for. I am very passionate about community safety. I think that we could be the safest country in the world, but I've been extremely disappointed to see that we're heading in the wrong direction over the last 3 or 4 years. So yes, I'm hoping that next year I'll be the incoming police minister.
Any aspirations to be leader, or have you given up on that?
No, there's no aspirations at all to be leader. We've got a very, very good leader. He's doing extremely well, and he's going to make a great Prime Minister.
And that's our show.